Hello, hello. How are we? How is everyone? Welcome to the Armchair Author Chats. I'm your host, Rita Slanina, and we have an amazing author today, SD Huston. I'm so happy that she could be here with us today. I'm going to let you get in with her right away because she's just got so much juicy things to talk about. Hello, Shannon. How are you? Welcome.
Good. Yeah, doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We were talking backstage, and would you like to tell the audience a little bit about you and your amazing books?
Oh, sure. Well, I am a and fantasy romance author. I tend to write about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. There's always love to find, and there may or may not be a dragon. Right now, most of my stories have dragons in them, but I know that there's going to be future books in my series that do not have dragons as central to them. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So let's get started with some of the magic.
Yeah.
Can you share the moment you felt that spark to write your first book? Because you have quite a few, but that first book, I really want to know what made it.
Yeah, so I always like to tell stories to my brothers. I can remember being like 3, 5. My brothers just say, "Hey, make stories," and I make stories up right there. Then, when I was 9 years old in class, we had to write a story and illustrate it, and that was my first story. It was 16 pages long. It was a fantasy because I started off writing fantasy, and illustrated it, and we bound it with like yarn and stuff. And that was I knew then. I remember going to my parents to say, "I'm going to be a writer when I grow up. I want to write stories," which back then, trying to be an author was not a job people really went after because you didn't make a lot of money. It was hard to get, it didn't have the online book sales and stuff
Right,
like that.
it's hard. Like, you know how
Yeah.
hard that is. Same thing with all the entertainment and type of
Yeah. And that
things,
was called
right?
The Painting. But it evolved, and it's like the story of my heart. I've written it over and over and over again. I wrote it again twice in my teens, twice in my 20s, once again in my 30s. I did get an editor and had a book cover made for it, but I've never published it. One day I might. So, and it's now called the Carrier of All Souls, but it is a fantasy. But since I am a fantasy romance, I feel like maybe I should go back and revamp it and put some romance into it. So,
Ooh, well, I'm a fan of romance. I'm sure some of our audiences as well. So, can you give us a peek behind the curtain about your writing routine or any quirky habits you have?
um, yeah, anything that your questions that talk about quirkiness or funny, I am a total boring person. I don't fit into any of those molds. Um, so,
You are not
but my,
boring, sister
I,
girl. No.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that, even if I don't believe that about myself. But so my writing habits, I am a full-time writer now. I've spent a lifetime in various jobs supporting my husband while he was in the military. I was also in the military. And then we decided when he's retired that, he would support me to be a full-time author. So that's what I'm trying to do. So my days are open for me to work on my writing. And I like to stay busy. So I have a ton of other things I do on top of it. That's all part of my author business. But I do writing sprints Monday through Thursday. They're more productivity sprints so people can come do whatever they want. But I have made it where that's my time to write. So I try to stick to that as much as possible. I've gotten better over the years about making sure that I use that time only for writing. Of this year so far, only 3 of those sprints, not even the whole stream, but just 3 sprints, I've used it for something else other than writing, which means I've got a lot of words this year.
Nice, nice. So your book is a roller coaster. And I
Yeah.
love that. I think my favorite has to be Emma the mermaid, who
Oh,
doesn't like
yeah.
to wear clothes
Yeah.
because she's a mermaid.
Yeah.
So, what inspired such a captivating storyline?
So it's kind of going with that line that I said about myself. I tend to write about broken characters. So um, I have I can't help it. I didn't even really think of this is not something I was like, oh, I'm going to write about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. But after I had written a few books, and I was like, well, what is me? What is my brand? What is it that I do? What is it about my stories that if someone comes to my story to read it, they know they're going to find this. And that's where I realized, well, all my stories, all my characters have a history of something that was traumatic in some way. And it could be ongoing trauma, like it is for Emmy. She has a magic that is destructive, and the only way to stop herself from killing everybody around her is she can't move. She has to hold completely still. And so that has led to a life of isolation and, no love. So that still continues to affect her and haunt her as the story goes on. And she's battling that throughout the whole book because she has a temporary spell, but it's wearing off. So I don't know. I think I'm just drawn to, I guess, the endurance of the human spirit and what we can handle and how we can become better people, even if we have dealt with people or things that have been really terrible for us.
I love that. I love that. That's great. So writing isn't always easy. So one thing I
Yeah.
would like to know from you is, how do you push through writer's block on those tough days?
Um, so I believe in writer's block, but for me specifically, it's only because I don't know what I should do next because I'm a pantser. I always know beginnings of stories. I always know the endings. I may not know what's going in between. And those are the only times I've really run into blocks. But usually, if I have someone I can talk to, like I'll talk to my husband about my stories all the time. And he says he can't read my stories because, well, he doesn't like to read anyways, but he says he can't read them because he already knows them all because I've talked about them so much. I talk about it with somebody. And then, of course, with the rise of AI, that is my brainstorming buddy. So often I don't take like the suggestions given to me, even my husband, because he used to say, well, I don't know what good I do you. You never take any of my suggestions. I'm like, yeah, but just talking to you brings it out. I'm
We
able
were
to figure
working
out
it
what it is.
out in real
Yeah.
time, out loud. That's part of the
Yeah.
process. Yeah, my husband says
And
the
it's just,
same thing.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and Becca Syme calls that the intuitive writer. So like we intuitively, we have it in our mind that we know how story structure works. We know how character arcs work. We know all of this. But sometimes it's hard for us to access that information. And so by talking it out or writing it out, we're able to access the information that's going to work for the story that we're working on. So I use AI in the same way as my brainstorming buddy. So I just put in there, I have a running thread where it knows like everything I've developed on my characters' backgrounds, the misbelief, the lie they believe about themselves, their deep-seated desires, their character arc, and what it should look like through the story. I put all of that in there, and so it's one thread. I just put it all in the beginning when I'm working on a story. And I was like, okay, I have this coming up. What are some things that can happen if he or she does this? And it'll give me some ideas, and then I can refine it and knock it out or figure out what it is I actually want. So I don't really deal with writer's block too often. And to be honest, I have way more stories in my mind than I'm ever going to be able to write. So I
Mhm.
have often thought about getting a ghostwriter, but I don't want to have to pay somebody. So
Well, so it seems like in order to beat writer's block, you're on the front end of it, where you're just constantly reaching out to anyone who can maybe help jog you
yeah,
along or help work you through it, even if it's just more, not necessarily a writer's block issue, but more like kind of just this
what
little
should I do?
speed bump of a stuckness,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. So
And
if
for me, I
you're,
know that I was gonna say, for me, I know writing is, there are some authors, I've talked to some authors who they're writing because they have a story they need to get out. I write because I like the writing. So I
yeah,
think there is a bit of a difference there.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if your book were to be adapted into a movie, who would you dream cast in the lead roles?
I don't ever entertain this question, to be honest, because
Oh,
I
it's
don't, even
fun.
my husband also is like, oh, I could see your books being a movie. I'm like, no,
I
no,
could too.
they're not that good. They're not good enough for that. That's the way I feel.
Oh, they so
But
are. They so
yeah.
are.
Part of imposter syndrome there. But yeah, I don't attempt to think about it, to be honest, because I don't think that. And then to be honest, I don't remember everybody's names because I don't watch a lot of TV and
That's
movies.
fair.
So
We're so busy running the author
yeah.
lifestyle and just constantly working on all the things. I can get behind the not being able to watch TV. Okay, so we all love a good story. What's one book, not your own, that you would recommend everyone should read?
The emotion thesaurus.
Absolutely.
So I grew up reading fantasy and writing fantasy. Somewhere along the way, I got told how my stories were more plot than character, and I don't really show a lot of emotions most of the time. Um, I don't I have emotions, just they don't always come out. So but I don't know what they're supposed to look like, how they come out non-verbally because I'm not aware of that in myself to do it. And so that really helped me. And I got this years and years ago. This is the first edition. I think that they have a second edition that's like 130 or 40 or 50 more. It has more entries in it, so it's a little bit bigger than mine. I need to get the new one. But that has helped me a lot. And it what it does is it gives the emotion and it gives like nonverbal ways to show it, verbal ways to show it, the internal sensations of the character and what that feels like to them. how it can escalate, how it can de-escalate, and it just has a lot of great information. So
Yeah, because of you, I have every one of those in my Amazon
you do?
cart.
Yeah, I have a whole. Oh, here they are.
There's
I've
quite a
got
few of
all these.
them.
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
have all of them. So
but
this
you
one's the
nearly
emotional
do.
wound disorders. This is the next one I'm doing. You can see I've put
Wow.
tabs in here because this is where like I usually know like what traumatic experiences happened to my characters, but I don't always know like how would they react to that trauma. And this has like a bunch of, information about different traumas and how they can react to it.
I love that. Yeah, there's like, what is there, like 12 of them, I think?
A lot. I don't
There's
remember,
quite
to
a
be honest.
few. And then now you're telling me there's newer editions. So
Well, there's a newer edition of this one. So, but this newer
about,
edition's been out since like I started publishing, which was in 2021. I've had this since like 2013.
okay,
So,
okay. So with time being precious, do you have any tips for managing your writing schedule? Because I know you are very busy.
yeah. So, um, I it's very hard to verbalize this, to be honest, because I'm a pantser and I write, and I kind of feel like I'm a pantser in my life, but then everything is ordered in my head. So like I know what's coming up and I know what I need to work on. And I can think, okay, well, in like 3 weeks, this needs to be done. Well, I don't need to do that right now. So I'll think about it then. And that's also how I approach emotions. Like if something's very anxious for me, or if it's gonna be super, super exciting, I'm like, it's not here yet. So I'm not gonna deal with those emotions. I'll deal with them when I get to that point. And then usually I get to that point, now I'm in dealing with whatever it is that I don't feel the emotions. So I kind of do the same thing when it comes to like planning. Like I know I have tons of things in my head going all the time. And I'm like, well, that's a little bit in the future. I don't need to deal with that right now. So when it gets there, now I'll deal with it. So that I don't have the best way to tell someone how to, be a planner. To plan
I mean,
everything.
that is great advice. What I'm hearing is don't worry about it till it gets there.
Yeah. But
You know what
that
I
does
mean?
that
Because
work
that
well?
anxiousness can come from
Yeah.
anticipating something that hasn't happened yet, but what if? And I think I was doing that this morning before we went on air today.
Yeah.
Like, what if this goes wrong? And then I'm like, it's not here yet.
The only thing where the way it does not work is when you're working with partners. So, like my first year of the Author Tube Writing Conference, my partner was Jenna. And at the end, she kind of gave me some feedback. She was like, I need you not to wait to the last minute to tell me when we need to do something. And in my head, I'm like, well, I don't feel it was the last minute. I was just, that's when we need to deal with it.
Sure.
And so I just, I have different partners now. And I told Margaret up front, and I told Evan too, when she came on as a chair, I was like, look, guys, this is the way my brain operates. It's not the best. I'm going to try and be better. But sometimes if something needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done before these other things need to be done, I'll concentrate on that. And that means when we get to that point, we need to do it now. Now I'm emailing you guys saying, hey, we need to work on this. And they don't have the time to adjust in their own schedule
Right.
in order to do it. So I've tried really hard, but it is hard to have that kind of style when you have partners. So
Sure. But at least you let them know on the front end. And it was kind
yeah,
of Jenna to let you know, like, hey, this is something that could, isn't helping me or whatever, right? Where it's like, make an adjustment, please. Or at least you have awareness now, right? I
yeah.
tend to over plan. So I'll come on, like I'm a pantser when I write, but I will over plan when it comes to something like this. Everything is super hyper organized, or I'll just be a train wreck and nothing will.
Well, I mean, the way you plan for this, I've kind of done the same thing. Like my podcast, I plan and I make a show notes, and it has everything laid out for the people who are interviewees. And then I also make a script for my co-hosts and all that. So I do a ton of planning. It's just I will
Yes.
wait until I need to do the planning to do the planning. So
All fair. So we all have our own ways of handling that.
yeah.
So can you share a piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you started your writing journey?
Oh, so is that like before I started publishing?
Sure, at any stage.
I would have loved for someone to have said to me, "Don't worry about what anybody else says. Go ahead and write," because I wanted to be a full time writer. My parents consistently tried to talk me out of it, and my church tried to talk me out of it because I wrote fantasy and they didn't believe in magic. And I was like, "Well, I don't believe in it either. It's just fantasy." Um, and then I just kind of felt like as I was graduating from like high school and stuff that like I couldn't pursue it. And I chose a different field, and it was so boring that I left it and I went in the military, and I continued to write. But then I thought, this is not a real job. And even I remember in 2013, Nope, 2010. And I told my husband, because I had to quit my job, we were getting orders to Hawaii, and it was kind of sudden, and I didn't have
Mhm.
anything lined up for Hawaii. I said, well, I would rather take this time and, maybe pursue writing full time. And at first he was okay, but then he kept dropping hints like, well, we could use the money for this if you're in, and I felt like pressured to go back to a job, which I hated because it was
Right.
admin. And then I went and got my degree, and that's when I said, look, I really want to pursue this, but I wish I would have never allowed anyone to say, nope, it's not going to work for you. You shouldn't do it. I wish I would have been like, I feel like I'm pretty confident in most of what I do, but I was not confident when it came to my writing and pursuing that as a career.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, I think that's great advice. So, one last fun question, which was not in the email.
Oh, okay. It surprised me.
Let's see. What's your favorite writing snack or drink? See, it wasn't too scary.
No. And actually I had ran out, and I asked my husband to go get some more for me yesterday, and this is what he got me. But dark chocolate with anything. So this is dark chocolate with
Ooh.
almonds. He also got me, I started eating that. It's dark chocolate with raspberry.
Yum.
Oh, intense dark chocolate. But because this is not with anything else, I don't know if I'm going to like it because
Oh,
I like it
that's my
mixed with
favorite.
something. And then one other thing he got me, I haven't opened it yet because he just got me this yesterday because I was out.
I
I
love it.
don't
I
know what he
love
got
it.
me. Dark chocolate. I think it's just plain dark chocolate. Yeah, it's mildly sweet, plain dark
Yum.
chocolate, which I'm not gonna like as much, but it's okay. I like dark chocolate with things. But yeah, those are my favorite snacks.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, thank you, Shannon, so much for being with us today.
Thank you for
Let's
having me
see.
on.
Where can we find out more about you? Let's let everyone know where we can find you.
Okay. Yep. So, well, my name is Shannon. I do write under the name of SC Houston. I have a YouTube channel here under the name of SC Houston, where I publish videos occasionally about my self-publishing and or writing journey. And I also do writing sprints here on YouTube Monday through Thursday. You can find me usually in the mornings. That's my best writing time. I'm also 1/3 of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast, which is published on my YouTube channel and also on major podcast platforms. We talk about self-publishing and marketing books. And I do that currently right now with Ben Pick and Morgan Lee. We do have a change up for our next season in our lineup of co-hosts, but we'll be talking about that more in later podcast episodes. And then I'm also the founder and conference chair of the AuthorTube Writing Conference, a totally free conference for writers and publishers. And we try to incorporate everybody, whether you're traditionally publishing, self-publishing, whatever type of publishing you're trying to do, or if you're at the beginning of your writing journey or at the end of your writing journey, or you're about to head into publishing, it doesn't matter. The AuthorTube Writing Conference just tries to encompass all of those, brings together essentially, it's a large collaboration of YouTube channels, large and small, over a 3-day course, a 3-day weekend to talk about all things writing and publishing.
All right. For more information, links will be in the description box below, and they will also be in the show notes on the podcast. The podcast will be uploaded later this evening after we wrap today's shows. If you like this interview, please like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. We're so glad that you could be here today. Thank you, Shannon, so much.
Thank you for having me, Rita.
You're very
This was
welcome. Very
fun.
welcome. Yeah. And that will do it for us today. It brings us to the end of the Armchair Author Chats. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you soon.